Welcome to Girl Read Your Bible, Sunday school for adults who missed it. I'm Nicole Woltz, your host for this podcast, brought to you by 522gals.com, a website dedicated to personal development and spiritual growth. Please go and check it out and sign up for our email subscription so that you can stay in the know about very exciting products that we have coming up. I have some things that I'm really looking forward to and we're working on specifically for the new year, but there's some really good stuff ahead and you don't want to miss it. So make sure you sign up for our email list. You'll also get an email notification every time that there is a new episode of Girl Read Your Bible to let you know what that episode is going to be about, to remind you to listen and not to miss a thing, because there is so many good takeaways and things that we can learn from and that is going to apply to our lives. Like this week's episode, which is titled Walking into God's Blessing, because we are studying the life and journey of Jacob. And this is a pivotal part of his story. This is a turning point for him, and it's something that is really going to resonate with a lot of us. It personally resonates a lot with me and things that I have been through, and that you can just have, there's a lot of good takeaways today that's going to help you and strengthen your walk and just help you to see God in the movements that you're taking and be reminded and encouraged to take those movements. It is time, girls. It is time to walk into the blessing of God and know exactly where that comes from. And we can see a lot of God's hand and his work carried out in the life and journey of Jacob. And so we are going to dive into that story today. We've already been talking about Jacob for a few episodes, and this one's really going to wrap up most of his story. He'll continue into the next one a little bit, but he won't be as much of the main character. So this is wrapping up a very important foundational historical figure in the Bible, because when they refer to their God all the way throughout the rest of the Bible, they'll often say, I serve the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So it's been important to know who these figures are so that we understand who the God is that they're referring to. And that's who we serve, guys. We serve the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And he is the same and able to do exceedingly abundantly more than we ask or think. And we can see how he shows up for these people in their journeys. And their lives are not perfect and blissful and wonderful like we would like to imagine this fairy tale existence could potentially be. Because the reality is, life has some challenges. Life has some struggles and disappointments for sure. But we can see in their lives, like we can see in our life, that God shows up. He lends a hand. He points direction. And he blesses us with unmerited favor, as he is going to do for Jacob, as he has continued to do. Because remember, guys, we've been talking and learning about Jacob. And he has had a lot of flaws, character flaws, not just mistakes. We all make mistakes. Jacob at the core has had character flaws. He was a trickster. He deceived his brother. He deceived his father. He is on the run. He has now been tricked by his now father-in-law to work an exceedingly long time just so that he could be with the woman that he loves. Incredible story. If you didn't already hear that one, you want to go back and listen to the last one, the Bible's Greatest Love Triangle, because that is all about his devotion and love for Rachel and how he has just been working for years, laboring for the love of his life. And they've had multiple children now. I think they're up to 11 children. Oh, actually, they're up to 12, counting the daughter. They have 11 sons and a daughter. And there's another one coming. That's why I said that. In any case, they are now feeling like it's time to move forward in life. And how many of us get to this place where we just have this knowing that it's time to move forward? The season has set on where you've been or what you've been doing, and you know that God's calling you into something that he's told you or promised you. And that's why I think this story is going to be so impactful today, because it really resonates with God calling us higher, calling us into a new season. Because Jacob has been working now for 14 to 20, because we're going into the rest of the story, but he's been working now for almost 20 years for Laban, and that's a long time. So this isn't short seasons, just like in our lives. We're not doing things for tiny seasons and just waiting for God to tell us what to do next week. This is long seasons that he's been waiting on his next assignment or time frame, and he's been patient, and he has been learning things in this time. And we can see that. We can see his character development, because while we notice that he had flaws, we can see his growth. And that's incredibly encouraging too, because it reminds us that we have had flaws too. And growth is the whole point. That's the whole point of life, in my opinion, is that you continue to grow and mature and learn things and become the person that God has created you to be. And that's the journey of life to me. And so this is what we're seeing play out in Jacob's life. And it's really cool, because we don't want to hold the memory of, even though I've harped on it a little bit, the memory of Jacob as a trickster and the memory of his mistakes that's caused him to even be in this situation, that's caused him to be on the run. These things are all still going to work together for his ultimate good, because it's all going to play out. I mean, if he wasn't on the run, maybe he wouldn't have met Rachel, just different things like that. So, but this time has given him time for character development, time for personal development and spiritual growth. And we're going to see that play out in his life, because he now knows that it is time to be moving on. And so we're starting today in Genesis chapter 30, but we're starting halfway through, because that's where we ended last time. So we're starting in verse 25, and we pick up where we left off, where Rachel and Leah and their servant girls have all been giving birth and naming the kids, and we went through all that last time. So we're coming into Jacob's awakening and really knowing that it's a new season. Soon after Rachel had given birth to Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, remember his father-in-law, "Please release me so I can go home to my own country. Let me take my wives and children, for I have earned them by serving you, and let me be on my way. You certainly know how hard I have worked for you." "Please listen to me," Laban replied. "I have become wealthy, for the Lord has blessed me because of you. Tell me how much I owe you, and whatever it is, I'll pay it." We're going to keep going in a second, but that's a really good takeaway scripture that I want you guys to really remember and meditate on and just process through, because this is a life scripture for all of us. Laban, who is, by the way, he acknowledges the God of Jacob, but he's not a follower of the God of Jacob. And so he's acknowledging, even though he feels outside of, this isn't his chosen God that he's serving, but he's still acknowledging that he has been blessed because of Jacob. And I think that is something that we can all claim and identify with. The people that we work for, that we surround ourselves with, they're blessed because of us, because you carry the favor of God on your life. And therefore, whatever you put your hand to is blessed. So long as you believe it, so long as you do things with integrity, so long as you activate that belief, the people around you will be blessed regardless of where they're falling in their faith. The Bible tells us it rains on the just and the unjust. And that's often because it's a blessing for us. It's not like we're not going to separate from over here. These other people will be blessed through you regardless of their own beliefs. You carry tremendous authority and power. And we're seeing that right here in this scripture, where Laban is even acknowledging it. It should be enough for him to turn to the Lord, the real true God, but it hasn't. So in any case, it's still enough for him to acknowledge that he has become wealthy because of Jacob. He's acknowledging the blessing and favor on his life. And that is something I want to see more in my life, and I know you want to see in your life as well. So that's a really good scripture to really pray on and meditate on and activate and apply to your own life, that belief. Tell me how much I owe you, and I'll pay it. Jacob replied, you know how hard I've worked for you and how your flocks and herds have grown under my care. You had little indeed before I came, but your wealth has increased enormously. The Lord has blessed you through everything I've done. But now, what about me? When can I start providing for my own family? See, Jacob knows it's time. He's got a lot of kids now. He knows it's time to be going into a new season. He can just feel it. What wages do you want? Laban asked again, and Jacob replied, don't give me anything. Just do this one thing, and I'll continue to tend and watch over your flocks. Let me inspect your flocks today and remove all of the sheep and goats that are speckled or spotted, along with all the black sheep, and give these to me as my wages. In the future, when you check the animals, you will see that you've given me as my wages. You'll see that I have been honest. If you find my flocks and goats without any speckles or spots, or sheep that are not black, you will know that I have stolen from you. This is a lesson in integrity as well. Jacob is striking a deal with him and giving him a really honest way, because like I said, Jacob wasn't always an honest person, and so it's almost like he's making sure that he's not accused of things, that he's showing his growth, showing he's changed. He's even willing to prove it. He's not like, let's go out and count them off, or there's probably a multitude of different ways that they could have divvied up this wealth of herds, but he's picking a way that no one can accuse him of anything, because he needs to be able to prove to others that he walks in integrity. However, unfortunately, karma is still coming full circle, because Laban's about to trick him anyway. All right, Laban said, it will be as you say. He's lying. But that very day, Laban went out and removed the male goats that were streaked and spotted, and all the female goats that were speckled or spotted or had white patches, and all of the black sheep, and he placed them in the care of his own sons, who took them on a 3-day journey from where Jacob was. Meanwhile, Jacob stayed and cared for the rest of Laban's flock. Even though he'd been tricked, he still walked in integrity, something we've got to get down as followers of the Lord. We have got to get down the fact that even when other people do wrong, we still walk in integrity and do the right thing, because God sees, and he's about to show up for Jacob. Then Jacob took some fresh branches from poplar, almond, and plane trees and peeled off the strips of bark, making white streaks on them. Then he placed these peeled branches in the watering troughs where the flocks came to drink, for that was where they mated. And when they mated in front of the white streaked branches, they gave birth to the young that were streaked, speckled, and spotted. We did talk about this briefly last week, because I found this quite an oddity, that this is how you can create streaked and spotted animals by this practice that they did. I wonder if that's still true today. I'm still a mystery to me. That seems particularly odd, but that's how it happened. And at mating time, he turned the flock to face Laban's animals that were streaked or black. This is how he built his own flock instead of increasing Laban's. So see, the deal was he was supposed to take those originally, kind of marked or flawed animals as his own, but Laban snuck out and stole them and sent them off, so there was nothing for Jacob. So Jacob's like, that's okay, I've got a backup plan, and I'll just start creating a new herd. And that's what he's going to spend the next couple of years doing. Whenever the stronger females were ready to mate, Jacob would place the peeled branches in the watering troughs in front of them, and they would mate in front of the branches. But he wouldn't do this with the weaker ones, so the weaker lambs belonged to Laban, and the stronger ones belonged to Jacob. Because he's being shrewd, and the Bible tells us to be shrewd as serpents and innocent as doves. So he's not doing anything against what he said he would do, but he is being shrewd. He is being very clever with this And again, he didn't like retaliate. He didn't go fight with Laban about this. He just found an intelligent solution. And that's something I think we're called to do a little bit more as well. That's a takeaway for me from the life of Jacob, is be a little shrewd and wise about your methods, and not maybe so much so to pick a fight. He's just like, all right, we made a deal and you're going to honor it one way or the other. And he's found a way to make that really to his benefit. So, as a result, Jacob became very wealthy, with large flocks of sheep and goats and female and male servants and many camels and donkeys. And we are going on to chapter 31. But Jacob soon learned that Laban's sons were grumbling about him. Jacob has robbed our father of everything, they said. He has gained all his wealth at our father's expense. Now, remember, guys, just because it's in there doesn't mean that's true. That's what they're saying. That's the truth of the matter. But that's not what happened. The wealth came from Jacob's work in the favor of God anyway. And then Laban tried to trick him out of it. So Jacob hasn't stolen anything from him. He's just gone in to claim what he worked for and to do what was right and fair. But they're having problems with it. You know why? Because sometimes people who don't follow God, especially, can't see the reality. They can only see out of greed or out of the lens of which gives them the favor, or it's always somebody else's fault. How about you guys? Where are you guys working at? Apparently these flocks and all this stuff was better off because Jacob came around. Where were you guys with the work all this time creating this? I mean, come on. They're not being fair to Jacob. They're not being honoring, and it's a reflection because he is chosen of God, and if they're going to dishonor him, it is equal at this point to be dishonoring to God, and they're going to pay for it. Jacob began to notice a change in Laban's attitude towards him. See, when he was making money or profit or whatever for Laban, when he was helping Laban build his wealth, Laban thought he was great. When Laban could take advantage of Jacob and make him work 14 years for two of his daughters, one of which he did not even want. When Laban's wealth and animals, whatever, was building, he had all kinds of warm, fuzzy feelings about Jacob and this person who he is gaining greatly from. But once he realizes Jacob's actually starting to make his own way, and once he realizes he's not just there to be building his wealth anymore, now his attitude has changed. And how messed up is that? Because remember, this is his son-in-law. This is the father of his grandchildren. If he was a man with honor and integrity, he would want good things for Jacob because it's still his family line. It's still his grandchildren that are going to benefit from this. It shows you a lot about Laban. Friends, watch out for the Labans in your life. They're around. Pay attention. But mind you that as the example from Jacob, he's still honoring and still has integrity when it comes to dealing with Laban, even though Laban doesn't reciprocate. Because we're called to treat people the way we want to be treated, not the way they treat us. So Jacob has learned. Look at all the character growth we're seeing here. This is huge character growth. I want the same for me. I want my personal development and spiritual growth to be exponential, much like Jacob's, because he is really showing to be a completely grown man, a completely different man than he was at the beginning of his story when we met him and he was tricking everybody out of everything and being quite the mama's boy. He had to leave his home to grow up. And he did grow up. And now he knows Laban's attitude towards him is changing. He knows it's time. It's time for a new season. It's time to step into something different. It's time to reclaim the promise God had given him. He took this blessing from Esau. He received the blessing from his father. He knew that it was his destiny to fulfill God's promise that he'd made to Abraham, to Isaac, and now would fall to Jacob. He knew these things to be true, and now he knew it was time to start stepping into more. And he'd been patient, and he'd been diligent, and he'd been a hard worker. He wasn't rushing through life. That shows incredible growth right there, friends, because that's one I struggle with. I like to rush through things and rush on to the next season. And God's like, I got something for you right here in this season. But the people around you will sometimes help with delivering that message. Jacob's getting restless. He's got this family to take care of. He's like, it's time for me to go. And things aren't going well with that conversation. We just read it. And now, now he knows that even despite his integrity of the situation and lack of confrontation over the deceit that Laban played out, Laban's attitude towards him has changed, and he can feel the animosity maybe and knows it's time to move. So then the Lord said to Jacob, return to the land of your father and grandfather and to your relatives there, and I will be with you. So see, he got a nudge. He was feeling very uncomfortable, and then God spoke. And I think we can resonate with that. Can you resonate with that, friend? Is that hitting you where you are right now? Because Jacob is trusting God's provision and not Laban's manipulation. He's not acting out of fear. He's acting out of promise and out of faithfulness. So Jacob called Rachel and Leah, and this is a good example of being a pretty good husband, actually. I'm surprised by this. I'm not going to lie, because I've read a lot of the Bible, and there's not always good examples of husbanding. But Jacob's going to do something really good here. He calls out his wives, and he said to them, I have noticed your father's attitude toward me has changed, but the God of my father has been with me. You know how hard I have worked for your father, but he has cheated me, changing my wages 10 times. But God has not allowed him to do me any harm. For if he said, the speckled animals will be your wages, the whole flock began to produce speckled young. And when he changed it and said, the striped animals will be your wages, then the whole flock produced striped young. In this way, God has taken your father's animals and given them to me. So see, there's part of the story that we were missing. We got it here. We got it a little bit later. Laban's been doing this for a while. He's been changing up the rules for a while. Things have been progressively getting ugly. And, this is happening over a long period of time because it's always happening over mating season where these rules here are changing. So there's a period of time for that to happen. I don't know how long it is between sheep's and goats mating seasons, but I'm just saying we know some time is passing. One time, we're on verse 10. One time during the mating season, I had a dream. And this is important because his son is going to carry on this characteristic here. This dreamer characteristic is an important thing in the line and lineage of the people of God, ourselves included. In any case, let me start that over. Verse 11. Then in my dream, the angel... Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, friends. I'm going to back up because I realized I had skipped right over that. Verse 10. One time during the mating season, I had a dream and I saw male goats mating with females who were streaked, speckled, and spotted. Then in my dream, the angel of God said to me, Jacob. And I replied, yes, here I am. That's the best answer we can give when we hear the call of Lord. Friends, if we're going to see it repeatedly as we go through the Bible, the reply should always be, yes, here I am. God's looking for that. That's so good. We're going to keep going. The angel said, look up, and you will see that only the streaked, speckled, and spotted males are mating with the females of your flock. For I have seen how Laban has treated you. I told you, friends, God is watching. I am the God who appeared to you at Bethel, the place where you anointed the pillar of stone and made your vow to me. Now get ready to leave this country and return to the land of your birth. He's telling his wives about this. And Rachel and Leah responded, that's fine with us. We won't inherit any of our father's wealth anyway. He has reduced our rights to those of foreign women. And after he sold us, he wasted the money you paid him for us. All the wealth God has given you from our father legally belongs to us and our children. So go ahead and do whatever God has told you. We're seeing a bigger picture here, friends. So we just want to talk about that real briefly, is that clearly Laban hasn't been an ideal father to his daughters, because while the sons typically got the inheritance, there was different ways to divvy different things up, different parts, different regions, different cultures. And Laban is part of a different culture. So what we can demise from this is that they're obviously pretty upset. He's reduced our inheritance to those of foreign women. Okay, that's a slam. That's a bad thing. So obviously they're upset with their father, and he hasn't shown integrity and love for them. So it's really painting us this picture of this greedy, self-serving Laban. And even after seeing the way God honors and blesses Jacob, he doesn't wake up. He doesn't get it. He doesn't change his ways. And that is quite the revelation for the world, right? Because we can see that happen all over. Even though we can see the goodness and blessings and mercies and peacefulness and grace that God brings into people's lives, you've always got these people. This is some people who just refuse to acknowledge that, or they will acknowledge that that's happening, but they don't want to take part in it. And this is the same thing that's happening with Laban. In any case, his own daughters are like, that's fine. We're good to go. When I said about Jacob being a good husband, the fact that he went to his wives and had this conversation with them, he wasn't just like, hey guys, it's time to go. Gather everyone up. I heard from the Lord, it's time to go. Which he could have done, and we'll see other historical figures do that kind of thing. I think it's pretty, again, I'm going back to the good character of Jacob, that he went and had a conversation with his family and was like, this is what I'm hearing from God. This is what's going on. And I think it's time to move. And they're like, yeah, we're with you, And I think that's something that all marriages can learn from too, of, have the conversations, even if you feel like you're in the right to make those decisions. Having that conversation first makes everything go a little smoother, right, friends? So in any case, let's go back. So, and they're like, go ahead and do whatever God has told you. And we're to verse 17 now. So Jacob put his wives and children on camels and drove all of the livestock in front of him. He packed all the belongings he had acquired and set out for the land of Canaan where his father Isaac lived. At the time they left, Laban was some distance away shearing his sheep, and Rachel stole her father's household items and took them. Household idols. This is why we know that that Laban was not a follower of God, because he had household items. And this is where we see our first glimpse. Well, not first glimpse. We know Rachel's got some issues because she's constantly jealous of Leah. She wasn't able to have children. She's now had children. She gave birth to Joseph, and she's got some issues, we know, because she took her father's household idols. She shouldn't have wanted anything to do with them. That's going to come back to haunt her later. Jacob outwitted Laban, the Aramean, for they set out secretly and never told Laban they were leaving. So Jacob took all of his possessions with him and crossed the Euphrates River, heading for the hill country of Gilead. I don't know. 3 days later, Laban was told that Jacob had fled, so he gathered a group of his relatives and set out in hot pursuit. He's mad. Even the Bible said, set out in hot pursuit. He caught up with Jacob 7 days later. He must have been in hot pursuit because remember, 3 days have passed before he even learned, and a week later he catches up with them. So yes, he was in hot pursuit. He caught up with them. So, but the previous night, God had appeared to Laban the Aramean in a dream and told him, I'm warning you, leave Jacob alone. See, this is the thing with the cultures of this day, and they had many gods, but our God would have still been one that they would have acknowledged. They just didn't see him as the one head God. So like he's acknowledging, he's seeing that Jacob's God is approaching him, and he knows this is a powerful being. He knows enough to listen, but still doesn't quite know enough to change his ways and get on board. Laban caught up with Jacob as he was camped at the hill of Gilead. Sorry if I'm reading this wrong, guys. Gilead, I think it's pronounced. I don't know. And he set up his camp not far from Jacob's and then approached him. "What do you mean by deceiving me like this?" Laban demanded. "Hello, pot calling the kettle black. Talking about deceiving him. He has been deceiving and tricking Jacob for years at this point. How dare you drag my daughters away like prisoners of war?" Remember the same daughters who he belittled their inheritance to that of foreign women, and they're already upset with him. So look at him trying to act like he cares about his family now. A little strange. "Why did you slip away secretly? Why did you deceive me? And why didn't you say you wanted to leave? I would have given you a farewell feast with singing and music accompanied by tambourines and harps. Why didn't you let me kiss my daughters and grandchildren and tell them goodbye? You have acted very foolishly. I could destroy you. But the God of your father appeared to me last night and warned me, leave Jacob alone. I can understand your feeling that you must go, and your intense longing for your father's home. But why have you stolen my gods?" Now Jacob, "I rushed away because I was afraid," Jacob answered. "I thought you would take your daughters from me by force." Because he already knows he can't trust them. Calling him out, because that's probably what actually would have happened. "But as for your gods, see if you can find them, and let the person who has taken them die. And if you find anything else that belongs to you, identify it before all of these relatives of ours, and I will give it back." But Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen the household gods. Laban was the first one to check the tent. And I'm going to summarize some of this for you. And girl, that doesn't mean it's not important. It means I want you to read it for yourself. I don't need to go over each and every line here. It's taking up a lot of time. I want you to read the Bible for yourselves. This is just designed to help you. In any case, they're going to have some back and forth. Laban's going to go and check it out. He's not going to be able to find anything. Rachel's hiding it because she's sitting on it and saying she can't get up because it's this time of month. And he's okay with that. So she was pretty clever at hiding what she'd stolen. Meanwhile, Laban can't find anything else that's been taken that's his. And Jacob kind of throws a little fit and is like, "See, I told you so." And then they go back and forth until they agree to make a treaty and in front of everyone, and they build a little witness pile, and they make a covenant that they're okay, and they make a pile of stones and say that this is our covenant, that we're not gonna have it out for each other, that we're good, and it's a witness in front of everybody. And dropping down to verse 50, I do want to point out that Laban does say, "If you mistreat my daughters, or if you marry other wives, God will see it, even if no one else does, and he is witness to this covenant between us." So he does care about his family, or he's at least trying to make it sound like he does to the people around him, because he's calling him out on, you take care of my daughters and they're it. Like, you shouldn't have more wives than this, which is ironic because, like I told you, it was common to have multiple wives in that day. But of course, Jacob agrees, and they take this oath before God, and Jacob offers a sacrifice there, and then Laban gets up early the next morning, kisses his grandchildren and his daughters, and blessed them, and then he returned home. And that's really wrapping up Laban's story, but not Jacob's, because we're actually getting to some really good, memorable stuff, and that's going to continue into chapter 32. And so I just want to point out again all the character growth, personal development that we're seeing in Jacob. He handles this beautifully, and he even comes to a truce or a covenant and says, we're good. Promise me we're good. And he knows it's important to not have a lot of enemies out there coming for you. And so he makes this commitment, and that's showing something too. He doesn't just continue to run away or hide, which is what he's done when he ran away from Esau. He has learned, I don't want to be in fear of you. I've done the right thing. I kept my integrity. I just proved it to you. And I don't want to, I don't want this animosity. I don't want to feel like we have a problem. Like, let's make a covenant and a truce that we're good. And that is, again, like they're making a peace treaty, essentially. And that's a good thing because he's showing them like what really matters. Huge development and personal growth for Jacob. But we're going to keep going because this is where the story gets super good. As Jacob started on his way again, we're in chapter 32, guys, verse 1. As Jacob started on his way again, angels of God came to meet him. When Jacob saw them, he exclaimed, "This is God's camp." So he named the place Mahanaim. Sorry with the pronunciation again. Then Jacob, who had just made peace with his father-in-law and realized the blessing that was, and knows where he's headed, and is thinking on these things, and being in the presence of the Lord, again has another light bulb moment of personal development and spiritual growth. And he realizes he's headed home. He's headed home for the first time in 20 years. And when he left home, things were not good. And he's about to head home to where his brother is. You know, the same brother that he tricked out of everything and wants to kill him, which is why he ran for his life. And so he gets some wisdom here. Jacob sent messengers ahead to his brother Esau, who was living in the region of Seir in the land of Edom, and he told them, "Give this message to my master Esau. Humble greetings from your servant Jacob. Until now, I've been living with Uncle Laban, and I now own large flocks. I have sent these messengers to inform my Lord of my coming, hoping that you will be friendly to me." So he's making a peace declaration, and he's letting him know. He's feeling out the waters. It's very smart that he doesn't just sneak up on him. He's letting him know. And he's sending out the message. He's kind of coming in waving the white flag, I guess would be the right way to put it. After delivering the message, the messengers returned to Jacob and reported, "We met your brother Esau, and he is already on his way to meet you with an army of 400 men." Jacob was terrified at that news. Yeah, I bet. He divided his household along with the flocks and herds and camels into two groups, and he thought, if Esau meets one group and attacks it, perhaps the other group can escape. I mean, that was pretty smart planning because he knows what's happened here. And you would be terrified if you were Jacob too. Here comes your brother with an army of 400 men, and you wronged him, and you know it. Then Jacob prayed. What? You mean Jacob was in a bad, devastating situation, and again, with his spiritual growth, is showing us the right course of action, because right here in verse 9, it tells us, then Jacob prayed. Yes, friends, that is something that we learn from the life of Jacob. When you're in that moment and you don't know what to do and you're freaking out a little bit, the right answer is always to pray about it. And that is going to be the solution for Jacob. So let's keep reading. "O God of my grandfather Abraham and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, you told me, return to your own land and to your relatives, and you promised me, I will treat you kindly. I am not worthy of all the unfailing love and faithfulness you have shown me, your servant. When I left home and crossed the Jordan River, I owned nothing except a walking stick, and now my household fills 2 large camps. O Lord, please rescue me from the hand of my brother Esau. I am afraid that he is coming to attack me along with my wives and children, but you promised me, I will surely treat you kindly, and I will multiply your descendants until they become as numerous as the sands along the seashore, too many to count." What an incredible prayer, friends. Jacob is coming to God humbly, but also reminding God of his promises. That's also his way of saying, I trust you. You told me this, so I know you're going to work this out. He is staking that claim and identifying with the promise God gave him, and not reminding God as if God is forgetful, but letting him know that he also, I remember, I know, I believe, you promised me, so I know you will make this okay, even though I don't deserve it, even though I had nothing, but you said you would treat me kindly, and I know that you will. And so he's making a declaration, and he's praying and counting on God. And it's such an incredible example for us. That's the prayer. I want you to type it out or write it down and just put it on your own wall. Even though it's really about Esau, and that there's a lot that you can get out of it. Even if you only go, from, let's say, verse 12, but you promised me, I will surely treat you kindly and multiply your, you could say descendants, but you could put in blessings, until they become as numerous as the sands along the seashore, too many to count. What an incredible prayer for you and I. Continuing on to verse 13, Jacob stayed where he was for the night, then selected the gifts from his possessions to present to his brother Esau. Why, friends? Because when somebody's coming after you, a good thing to do would be to get them some gifts. Trying to barter his way out, or trying to, I don't want to say buy his forgiveness, because it's a little more honoring than buying his forgiveness. It's showing it. It's showing up. It's saying, I wronged you, and here's an effort to make peace. It's an effort. And so that's really wise of him. And he's pulling out a bunch of animals. Please read that for yourself. There's all kinds of numbers there. He divided these animals into herds and assigned them to different servants. And then he told his servants, go ahead of me with the animals, but keep some distance between the herds. He gave these instructions to the men leading the first group. When my brother Esau meets you, he will ask, whose servant are you, and where are you going, and who owns those animals? And you must reply, they belong to your servant Jacob. So he's even putting himself in a humbled position by saying, he continually refers to himself as Esau's servant. And that's just a way of showing honor and asking for mercy, really. But the gifts are for his master Esau. Look, he is coming right behind us. And Jacob gave the same instructions to the second and to the third herdsman. You must say the same thing to Esau when you meet him. And be sure to say, look, your servant Jacob is right behind us. So see, this is really clever of Jacob. I'm sure this was knowledge and wisdom that came from the Lord, because he's sending out multitudes. I think it was 3 different sets. So these people keep running into Esau to appease his anger and to show genuine, authentic apology. So this group is running into you and saying, these are my master Jacob's, and they're for his master Esau, their gifts. And then the next group says the same thing, and the next group says the same thing. And I think each time, I would guess that each time Esau's anger is dissipating a little bit, and he's seeing some authenticity, and he's seeing some growth in his brother, who was previously a trickster, just showing this olive branch and just showing this honor to his brother. And so that's a good thing. Jacob thought, I will try to appease him by sending gifts ahead of me, and when I see him in person, perhaps he will be friendly to me. So the gifts were sent on ahead, while Jacob himself spent the night at the camp. And during that night, this is an important story, guys. Important story. Well, it's a familiar one. So if you had been in Sunday school, you definitely would have at least heard this part. So we're going to start with verse 22. During the night, Jacob got up and took his 2 wives, 2 servant wives, and his 11 sons, and crossed the river with them. After taking them to the other side, he sent all of his possessions over. This left Jacob all alone in the camp, and a man came and wrestled with him until dawn began to break. When the man saw that he would not win the match, he touched Jacob's hip and wrenched it out of socket. Then the man said, let me go, for dawn is breaking. But Jacob said, I will not let you go until you bless me. And what is your name? The man asked. And Jacob replied, Jacob. Your name will no longer be Jacob, the man told him. For now on, you will be called Israel, because you have fought with God and with men and have won. Please tell me your name, Jacob said. Why do you want to know my name? The man replied, and then he blessed Jacob there. And Jacob named the place Peniel, which means face of God. For he said, I have seen God face to face, yet my life has been spared. The sun was rising, and Jacob left Peniel, and he was limping because of the injury to his hip. Even today, the people of Israel don't eat the tendon near the hip socket because of what happened that night when the man strained the tendon of Jacob's hip. So in some translations of the Bible, I want to back up because it's really important. In some translations of the Bible, it doesn't say a man. He wrestled an angel. And then some say the angel of the Lord. And then some say he wrestled with the Lord. So it's a little confusing from version to version. But the idea here is, he wrestled with the Lord. And it was, I don't have full wisdom and clarity on why in the world that happened or what all the deep meaning must be behind that. But Jacob wrestled and would not let go and would not give up and would not stop until he had the blessing of the man he was wrestling with. He knew there was something more spiritual going on there that I don't have all the insight to. And maybe someday I'll have a deeper, revelation of what all that meant. But at that time, significantly, he would not quit, would not give up. He knew how much it mattered to have the blessing of the Lord. And when the Lord asked him about it, he changed his name to Israel. The Lord changed his name to Israel. And that's where we get the whole country, the whole providence, the whole people, the Israelites. That's where the name comes from. Jacob's name, much like Abraham's name was originally Abram and was changed to Abraham. Jacob's name would now be changed to Israel. So, where Abraham to Abram was a close change, that this is a big change from Jacob to now Israel. But from him, that's where we get the whole name for all the things. I mean, this is an important part of the story, right? So it's funny, though, because I will say that Jacob is still often continually referred to as Jacob, where his name is now Israel, where that doesn't happen a lot of the other times when people change their names. That's just a side cliff note. In any case, it was an important thing that was happening as Jacob has shown us continually that he has grown. As a person, he's grown in character, he's grown in integrity, he's grown in spirituality, he's grown in faith, he's grown in understanding the promises of God, and that is leading to him making good choices full of integrity. That is leading to him making good choices in obedience to God. God said it was time to leave and go back home, and that's a risk for Jacob. How many of us is God speaking to, saying it's time to step into the next season? And when God tells you it's time to step into the next season, it's likely that you were pretty comfortable in this one. Although things will become uncomfortable when you are staying somewhere for too long, just like things started to become uncomfortable for Jacob. And he was having this tension with his father-in-law, and he was feeling the urgings of the Lord, and he knew that it was time to move on and step into the next season. That action came with risks. That action came with effort. Friends, these are our takeaways for this week, for this episode, for our entire lives, actually, is that this is what it looks like to know that it's time to step into the next season and then actually take those steps. And every step of that journey was not covered in favor and blessing and got all green lights and the weather was perfect and everything was nice and it was an easy journey. No, that's not how the next step and next season was playing out for Jacob, and likely is also the same case for us. Each and every step is not on a fluffy cushion. Each and every step is not well planned out and without fumble or challenge. But he knew that it was time, and he obeyed God. And he knew and recognized the value of the blessing of God and wrestled with God all night, held on, wouldn't quit, suffered pain because he knew it was worth it. He knew how much it mattered. And as a result, he is Israel. Literally, he's the founding father of the Israelite people. His 12 children will be the 12 tribes of Israel that we still have today. That's so monumentally historic. And that just rests on him and his obedience and his understanding of walking into the next season. I hope you're taking away something really valuable from this. So let's just recap for a couple minutes, because I think there's some really important stuff for us. I hope you have stayed all the way to this point, because this is where it gets good for us. Jacob desires a life beyond survival. From the beginning of our story, he's serving Laban for 20 years and then another 6, or for 14 years and another 6 years about working and building this herd and having this situation happen. 20 years he's serving. And he says, when am I going to stop just surviving and just working? I need more than a life of survival. I need a life of purpose. And I know that there are some of you listening right now, that's how you're feeling. You've been working day to day, and you've been surviving, and you've been getting through this life. But God did not give you this life to get through it. He gave it to you for abundance and goodness and joy and more. And sometimes more doesn't just look like some, fancy, beautiful house on the beach and life's so nice and easy. That's not what I'm saying, okay? When we're talking about the blessings in favor of God, it doesn't look like the blessings in favor of the world necessarily. It doesn't mean it comes with, it can come with wealth. It can come with all kinds of wonderful things that anyone would value. That's not what I'm saying either. Please don't misunderstand me. I'm just saying that sometimes it looks a little different. Sometimes purpose doesn't mean ease and comfort. It certainly didn't for Jacob, but it meant something more, something bigger, something historic, something of great value. His life was comfortable enough. He was a pretty good shepherd. He had some kids. He had some wives. His life was fine, if you want fine. But Jacob knew it was time to move into a life of purpose, not just a life of survival. Take that away, marinate on that, journal about that this week. That's really, really valuable. Where there's got to be a moment when we say, is this the end? Is this what I want the rest of my whole life to look like? Or is it time to make a change? Is it time to do something different? Is it time to do something more? Friends, I am not telling you to run out and quit your job. Now, if God is, go ahead. But that's not what I'm saying. Maybe it's time to add something to it. Maybe it's time to look for new communities or friendships or volunteer opportunities or something to get involved in that's going to create a more factor in your life than just the average typical, I go to work, I come home, I clean my house, we eat dinner, recycle, repeat. If you're in a recycle, repeat rut in your life, it's time to start looking for something with more purpose. Is this the end of your story? Is this what the rest of your life is just going to look like on repeat? No, you have the ability to change your world. Change your surroundings. And like I said, that doesn't just mean you're making a huge change. Maybe you're not moving to another state or another country. Maybe you are. Who knows? I don't know what's going on in your story. But when you prayerfully consider this, you know. You absolutely know. And if you're curious about it and you're having a struggle of what's the Lord speaking to you, this is a really good time. This is where journaling is actually a really powerful tool that you can take full advantage of. You can sit down with a pen and paper and just talk to God and just start writing and see what's coming out of your heart. What's going on the paper and coming out of your heart, you'd be surprised how effective of a tool that is in a quiet space. Maybe you have some nice instrumental music playing in the background and you're just peaceful and still, and say, what is the next step in my story? And then just start writing and see what God speaks and reveals to you. What are the promises that God has put in your life? If you don't take the steps Like Jacob took the steps. Jacob started putting together this herd. He didn't immediately just like take off like, okay, God said I should go. Like, I guess I'm going to pack it up and go. No, he took steps. It took a couple years, several years to grow this herd so that he could leave with something of value, so that he brought something of value with him. He made wise choices in preparation for the steps and for hearing from God. But he was making steps, taking action every day to move towards what he knew God was telling him. And that's our big takeaway. Jacob was trusting in the promises of God and taking and walking in action, not just waiting for permission. He wasn't waiting for Laban to come to him and say, hey, you know what? I think it's time for you to go. He wasn't waiting for some superiority, some supervisor in his life to come and say, you know what you should be doing? He wasn't waiting for someone else. He was trusting in his own relationship with God and trusting in the promises that God had made him. And he took steps to back up that action. And that is some of the many things that we can see in the life and journey of Jacob. And we can get a lot from his story because I can just keep going into it. So I recommend you read over this story for yourself this week. And I recommend that you journal quite a bit about it. And I recommend that you sign up for our email list because I've got some good stuff coming out to send you to correlate with this episode. Make sure you're also following us on social media. There's a really cool prayer that goes along with this week's episode that's going to be on our social media at 522gals. If you're on Instagram, it's at 522_gals. And follow us on those for the encouragement and the things that's going to partner with these episodes. It's really going to help you grow in your faith. Please, my friends, share this with a friend in your life that can use some encouragement that will help you grow together. Maybe you guys can have conversations about the reading this week, about what's going on about this episode and how it applies to your life. And you'll be surprised to find how much of an encourager you have in the people around you, because everything's better when we do it together. So I hope that you got a lot out of this week's episode. I know I did. And I am going to be journaling and meditating on this portion of scripture and this reading for the rest of the week, because it's some really powerful stuff. And until next time, girl, read your Bible.